How's it going, everyone? So today we're going to go over the new open world games that should be coming out this year in 2025. I'm a big fan of Force, as you guys can see on the screen. He's going to go over the 10 best looking new open world games coming out this year. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's go!
Welcome back. Apologies ahead of time if I look and sound a bit rough today. I'm just
Force is
barely
sick.
coming out of a flu that whooped my ass for this past week, so I feel a little rough too. Despite that though, I got a video for you today. We're going to take a look at some of the open world games coming out in 2025.
Let me know if you guys are open world game fans. I'm mixed with them because I do love open world games, but I just don't like all the things that you have to do, like all the side quests, all the things you have to find. If the games don't have that, if they're like more of a Elden Ring, I love them. If they're like an Ubisoft game, I hate them. That's just my point of view. Let's go.
Big open worlds, they're fun to explore around. So let's see what good ones are coming out this year, yeah? All right, so I want to start with games that actually have confirmed release dates, and we're going to go in chronological order here. First up, we've got Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Oh boy,
this is
this
actually
game.
launching just a few days from
This
now.
game.
The TLDR, this is AC set in feudal Japan, which on premise alone, I'm looking forward to. I can say at least personally, I've been waiting for them to make an Assassin's Creed game in this
Oosh.
setting for just about as long as the series has been around. So I'm glad that it's finally here, although it comes at a rather tumultuous period for the company. Ubisoft being seemingly on the cusp of some major shakeup in one form or another after years
This
of
game has to
underperforming
hit.
games and the
to
resulting
hit.
plummeting stock value. We are now seeing regular talks of company buyouts, the recent revelation that they may be splitting up and selling off some of their IPs, or maybe even splitting up the company itself, where they just have like, here's our most popular franchises, like here's the Assassin's Creed division, and everything else is going to be under a separate iteration of Ubisoft. I don't know.
Interesting.
However all of that pans out, I do think Shadows at least looks interesting. The game's going to have a massive seamless open world taking place in, of course, Japan, broken up into multiple districts to explore, each with their own cities, enemy compounds, and secrets. They're going to be going back to the RPG focus as well, including having gear with different rarities. You've got character leveling and skill trees to pick from. The game features two main playable.
I did see that you could buy weapons. I don't know if it's like early access or not early access, just like the pre-order bundles, like a deluxe edition, stuff like that, that they do have weapons there. I don't know if there'll be like high tier, or you can even like buy weapons outright. I saw something about that. I could be wrong about that, but I did see that. So I don't know. This game has to be a home run for Ubisoft, so we'll see.
Characters, one focused on brute
Has
strength
to
and
be.
head-to-head combat, where the other is all about stealth, speed, and agility, and you can swap between these two characters as you please while you play through the game. And then beyond the story, you're just going to go around doing all the typical Assassin's Creed stuff. You'll explore the open world, scaling the buildings, infiltrating the strongholds, taking out enemies, collecting loot, etc. And then of course there's going to be some of like the Animus modern day stuff as well, which it just always goes over my head because I've not played every single Assassin's Creed game in chronological order. So whenever they do like the real world virtual reality tie-in, I'm just like, okay, I mean, it's, yeah, okay, fine. Shadows is going to include some building and management systems as well. You're going to be able to construct and customize your own home base, getting various perks depending on what you choose. Yeah, I mean, it's looking like Assassin's Creed Japanese edition, basically, which, as I said, is something I've personally wanted for a while for the franchise. So I'm hoping they deliver. Now, online discussions and attitudes about this game have been not great, honestly,
Nope.
for a whole host of reasons. We'll see if any of that is an accurate read of the broader audience. Like, do general audience of players give a crap about any of
Damn,
this
so
stuff?
choking
We'll
that
figure
shit.
that out fairly soon. My guess, though, so long as Ubisoft doesn't completely drop the ball and the game is decent, it's probably going to perform quite well, but we're going to see. That's all going to really depend largely on its quality. Even without its quality, Assassin's Creed games, like, they just almost always sell well. That's part of the reason why they might be spinning off an entire division of the company that's like mainly focused on Assassin's Creed, right? So Assassin's Creed Shadows going to be launching on March 20th. Before we
March
continue
20th.
with the rest of this list, though, let's get a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Crystal of Atlan. This is a new Magic Punk MMO action RPG where you play as a member. Another open world game coming
Dune.
quite soon is Dune Awakening.
Have you guys played Dune?
It's like a running.
Did you guys try the? I know it was on Steam. They had a demo on Steam. I didn't didn't try it out.
Yak at this point, the amount that
I
I've
know
talked
it's not
about
my
this
game.
game, I can't help it. I'm genuinely looking forward
know
to
Forrest
it.
likes
As
this
shocking
game.
as that might be to some. As an
Just
open
never
world
caught
survival
me.
MMO, it just checks most every box of my personal interest. Now, we do have some, I think, legitimate early concerns based on what we've seen in terms of how good the game's combat's going to be, and also the overall performance. I think there's especially a big question mark about how the game's
I'm just not a big like survival-esque fan. Let me know if you guys are like survival games in like an open world setting or just survival games in general. I don't like to have to worry about my like stamina or health depleting or health or food or something like that. It's just not why I play games. I don't want to have a job while playing the game. I just want to have fun.
performance is going to be
That's just
in
me,
that
though.
big end game zone that's supposed to be unlimited number of players, apparently, based on their server structure that they're talking about delivering. They've said they're not going to have phasing or server shards. However many players show up in the deep desert are going to be the number of people you see. That sounds ridiculous.
It does.
I guess we'll see what happens. But beyond that, I mean, I'm pretty amped about everything else, to be frank. So again, this is an open world survival game. It's being developed by Funcom and will be building upon the foundation they laid with their prior survival title, Conan Exiles. The explorable spaces will consist of these two massive open zone regions. The first one of which is Haga Basin. It's said that this is larger than the entirety of their prior game, with around 100 hours in total of content to be explored. And then there's also the end game zone of Deep Desert, which is where all the late game progression and large scale PvP will happen, and that zone is even bigger than the prior one. Now, in the open world, there's going to be the assortment of points of interest, events, and content types. At its baseline, it's a survival game, so you are going to go around gathering resources, crafting items, you'll be building a base, and you'll be progressively making better and better stuff to be able to take on harder challenges. In terms of things that you'll be doing, there's going to be like enemy strongholds, these large bases, camps, and or ruins that are full of enemies. You go in, you clear them out, you collect loot and resources. There's also desert testing stations. These areas are predominantly underground and will come in a variety of different biome types. They have said that these are reminiscent to things like Fallout shelters or Skyrim dungeons. They're going to be larger, elaborate spaces. You'll be moving through different rooms and corridors, clearing out the enemies and uncovering bits of lore.
I won't like the game loop.
Things like audio logs. And then oftentimes there's going to be some sort of boss and or reward chest at the very end. There are player hubs with towns that have vendors, quest NPCs, other players, and a marketplace you can buy and sell items. They've got all sorts of different events like these crash ships that you see falling from the sky. You can go scavenge resources from them. They got these police forces that scan the surface of the planet at night. If they spot you, they'll call in reinforcements to your area. You got the sandworm. If you make too much vibrations on the sands, the worm will emerge and chase you down. And then they've even got all these dynamic weather systems, like with these sand storms that roll in, requiring you to take shelter inside. And then the end game begins once you are able to build your first ornithopter. This allows you to leave Haga Basin, head into the deep desert. This is a massive region, like I said, much larger than the prior one. It is made up mostly of sands, but with these rock islands dotted throughout that you can safely go on foot. Guilds of players are going to be heading here in search of spice, which is the main resource and currency for the end game gear crafting and character progression. It's also in that region where the game's large-scale PvP conflict is going to happen. Think Battlefield or PlanetSide inspired, with tons of players on foot, shooting, doing melee. They got all sorts of different vehicles, air vehicles, artillery, ground vehicles, etc., all mixed up in just one large conflict. Yeah, I mean, despite my legitimate reservations, this is also simultaneously one of my most anticipated games of the year. You don't get a lot of large-scale survival slash MMO slash open world games, so when one does come around, I'm certainly interested. Dune Awakening will be launching on May the 20th. Hell Is Us is a single-player, semi-open world, third-person action-adventure game set in an alternate reality where humanity is on the brink of collapse and supernatural creatures lurk in the shadows. Not much helping matters. Kind of like some Wukong looks like. An ongoing civil war in the location. This game has a rather interesting premise and setting, and just right off the bat is appealing to me. So it's designed to be very immersive. There is no map in the game, no compass, no quest markers. Instead, you're asked entirely to just focus on your surroundings in order to figure things out and navigate your way through the game. They lean into this further with the level design that is specifically going to be rewarding exploration and paying attention, with lots of hidden secrets and areas to be discovered. Well, along with this, there's going to be a lot of different puzzles and riddles to be figured out. Combat is third-person action with a range of weapons, including swords, spears, and axes. You get the mix of stuff. You got light and heavy attacks, dodge and parry, as well as very special abilities. And you also have this personal drone that follows you around, aiding you both in combat, but also in exploration and discovery. There have been a few early hands-on impressions that mostly came out of last year's Gamescom that I watched, and they were all fairly positive, so I'm quite excited to see and learn more about this game. Hell Is Us is currently scheduled to release on September 4th. All right, the final game that's on our list with a confirmed release date is Borderlands 4. It's making a return this year with its...
What do you guys think of Borderlands 4, the looter shooters? What do you guys think about looter shooters? Borderlands, what are you guys' thoughts on that? I had fun playing Borderlands. Is it my go-to game? No. But it is fun to play. I wouldn't like play it solo or anything. It's fun to play with friends and stuff like that.
Fourth major installment. Now, beyond being this action-packed first-person looter shooter, it's also a sci-fi adventure with what they call freeform combat, tons of exploration, boss fights, and an eclectic cast of characters. You're gonna be playing as one of 4 brand new Vault Hunters, each with their own unique skills, customized further via these skill trees, and a host of dynamic movement abilities at your disposal. The little glimpses of gameplay that we saw in a recent trailer looked fantastic, if I'm being honest. Like, this was pretty snappy-looking stuff, some really great high mobility, bombastic, over-the-top action, which leaves me fairly hopeful. I fell off of Borderlands 3 pretty quickly, but I'm rather interested in this one. You'll be battling mechanical monstrosities, bloodthirsty bandits, and vicious beasts as you collect all sorts of different crazy weapons, as is Borderlands tradition. I mean, this has always been the game that, like, we have more weapons than any other game ever, so they're continuing this. What did they say? They have like billions? I don't know. It's crazy. There's also going to be new vehicles and traversal tools, such as a grappling hook introduced in Borderlands 4. The game can be played solo or cooperatively with up to 3 other players. And Gearbox has described the world as a seamless playable space in which players can explore various locations of interest without being interrupted by any loading. Although they have avoided explicitly calling it an open world, they've said it's the most open and free that the franchise has ever been.
Pretty cool ability right there.
Different from, say, Borderlands 3 that had that planet hopping where it felt a little rough, confined, like you were literally just loading from one planet into another. And the game will also continue, of course, the tradition of Borderlands humor for better or worse, depending on what you think of it. Borderlands 4 is set to release on September 23rd. All right, now we're going to be moving on to the games that are scheduled for 2025, but as of this recording, they don't have an actual hard set release date. Ghost of Yotai is a standalone sequel to the 2020 hit
This game's going to be pretty cool.
This one centers around the theme of underdog vengeance, they say. The story set in Hokkaido, Japan in 1603.
But another thing about Ghost of Tsushima, there's like sometimes these games, like, there's so much to do in them. I just get overwhelmed. I'm like, man, I gotta do this and this and this, and I'm like, I take away from like the story. That's what like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth did to me. It was just like so many side quests, so many, that it kind of distracted me from the game. I was like, I just have to do them. I know I can't. I'm like, I don't have to do them, but I'm like, man, what? Can they give me something special here? So that's like the tether I walk when I play these open world games. Ghost of Tsushima had that too. There's like a bunch of side quests that you can do. I know you don't have to do them, but it's just that feeling of like FOMO, like missing out if you don't. That is like, I don't really like too much. I don't know. That's just my opinion on some open world games. Like, I still haven't beat Rebirth. I put like over 50 hours into that game, and just like, I know people are putting 100 hours in that game. It's just so much distracting from the main objective. I think that's why I like the classic better, because it's just straightforward. You could like find secrets if you need to, and just playing the game, not knowing that those secrets are there until like way later on, until like the internet came out. It's like, oh, you could do this, you could do this. But like having that in your face, like, oh, you're missing out here. There's a way marker here. Are you sure you want to miss this out? This is like too much. What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about way markers? What do you think about side quests that kind of burden the main story, or there's too much about it? I don't know. That's my little rant about side quests, waypoints, and stuff like that. That kind of distract from the main story or the flow of the game, but some people like them. I'm 50-50 about them.
3, which is 329 years after the events of the first game. Now, players take control of Atsu, a female warrior who has adopted the persona of the ghost at the dawn of the Edo period. The developers have said that players will have more control over the game's narrative and choices compared to in Ghosts of Tsushima, while building on the game's great combat world and exploration. And the initial trailer that they revealed also showed us a few new interesting things. Like, we saw dual-wielding katanas, flintlock rifles, and even the possible hint at an animal companion based on this interaction with the wolf here. I guess we'll see if that actually turns out to be anything. The game is also anticipated to be larger than Tsushima was, given that the island it takes place on and its relation to the real world.
I know that this game is going to be super pretty. Ghost of Tsushima, the first one, was just stunning visually.
The location that Tsushima took
Stunning.
place on, it seems like they're aiming for a bigger play space. At least that's the going theory. And we should be getting some diverse zones in this
Fuji.
region based on what we've seen so far. At least some large grasslands and tundras with that mountain off in the
Yeah,
distance.
see?
I mean, the original game was so much beloved, scoring very high marks across the board from users and review critics alike. Although I have seen some disappointment at the protagonist change, I don't care. Beyond that, I'm sure this is going to be a great game if it's even remotely like the first. Like, I just want a good game to play.
I just hope that they have the co-op system back in this game. Ghost of Tsushima's co-op, like PvE content, was just awesome. They could spin off a whole game about that. It just felt awesome, and they had raids too. It was just a fun time. Hopefully they bring that back and maybe develop on it more, because it was just a blast playing. I don't know if you guys played Ghost of Tsushima PvE content, fun with friends. And you got, like I said, you had freaking raids too, or like dungeons to do, kind of like Destiny in a way.
Play, bro. I don't matter if there's a new protagonist to me. All right, next up we got Crimson Desert, a game that I'm very much so looking forward to.
This game looks
with
cool.
Some slight reservations. This is an open world action RPG from Pearl Abyss, creators of Black Desert Online. While Crimson Desert was initially meant to be a spin-off to BDO, in fact, it was even
the
going to
camera
be
shake
an
is
MMO.
crazy.
That changed. A lot has changed throughout the development, and now they're going with a mostly single-player focus with some multiplayer elements. Open world RPG. That is what Crimson Desert is as of today. Now, we've learned a bit about the game's various systems and features thanks to many trailers, gameplay reveals, and previews over the past couple of years. We know it's going to be a large open world medieval fantasy game
They're
with
cooking
diverse
for sure on this
biomes,
game.
points of interest, cities, towns, ruins, and dungeons to explore. There'll be tons of quests and NPCs who need help. You're going to have strongholds full of enemies. There'll be boss battles.
Keep that
And the
crap.
combat system is pretty interesting because it's like an action combat system, but it also blends like Black Desert with like wrestling grappling moves. Like you can literally grab enemies by the neck and drop them onto the ground. It's kind of crazy stuff. Really interested to see how that's all going to
That
play
is cool,
out. It's
grappling
certainly
system.
not a Souls-like from what we've seen or heard at all. Some of the trailers have also shown just a ton of different things going on beyond the combat, like all sorts of
It's like an action ARPG mixed with like Zelda. Like that, like the newer Zeldas coming out. It's kind of like a mixture of that, like an action game mixed with Zelda.
mini games, various quick time events, a variety of puzzles. You got falling from the sky, like straight up Zelda style. You got riding of the dragons. You got interdimensional dungeons. I mean, man, they're packing a lot into this thing. Certainly looks like there's a lot going on, so I am quite hopeful. Definitely my biggest concern from the initial trailers is some pretty rough looking performance. Like even in their most curated stuff, you see a lot of frame issues. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's sorted by release. But yeah, there you go, Crimson Desert. The RPG classic Gothic is getting a full-blown remake this year. They're calling it a faithful remake, fully rebuilding the game by using current-gen technology while preserving its iconic atmosphere, enhancing the gameplay for a more fluid and dynamic experience.
cool.
Gameplay, just the game itself has been expanded with over 50 hours of content. You'll discover
Nice.
secrets old and new, challenging combat encounters, and a variety of unique NPCs. It's got a vibrant world where inhabitants go about their daily lives, working, sleeping, eating, and fighting to survive. This is one of like the biggest main interesting selling points about the original Gothic, and even today it seems like it's not quite been delivered to the degree we expect from a lot of RPGs. Like they really had like a really interesting, alive feeling world based on the systems that they built. So excited to see this revamped iteration of it. There's a branching story where you will choose which faction to align with from 3 options, and an enhanced combat system. They've modernized it with updates to the core mechanics from the original,
great.
offering more
Dinosaurs.
fluid and dynamic experience while trying to stay true to the deliberate and tactical roots. Terminator Survivors takes place 4 years after the day humanity nearly perished. Wow. Emerging from a shelter, you're going to be playing as a group of survivors. You can do this either solo or co-op.
I haven't heard
with
about
up to
this game.
4 other people, attempting to establish some semblance of society, tasked with scouring the surrounding land for materials, information, other survivors, and key resources in order to build a base of operations for your group. You'll meet iconic characters of the franchise as well as original ones while exploring this meticulously crafted world set in the post-apocalyptic future. You'll explore this open world, collecting materials and survivors powers to advance
You
your
gotta show
own
me something
base,
in the
all
show.
while having to avoid the pursuit of this indestructible threat. There is combat with weapons and tools for you to attack up close and at range. However, stealth and caution is mainly advised thanks to the, indestructible machines that are lurking around every corner. And the main storyline will have you unraveling the mystery to try to figure out some of what happened on Judgment Day. We've really not seen anything that resembles like actual gameplay from this thing yet, so expectations are just pretty much a question mark. I really don't know. It's basically just been this like cinematic trailer, but beyond that, I mean, it's an interesting premise, right? Like a Terminator Survivor game. Yeah, it makes sense. So we'll see how it pans out.
Like,
Dying Light the Beast.
Could be
this
like
is
the
a new
Division,
zombie smashing game from Techland. Always happy to see one of these. The game takes place primarily in this rural setting of Castor Woods. They refer to this as a tightly crafted open world, which features natural landmarks, small villages, and industrial complexes, all of which offer diverse traversal options, with the series' popular parkour system making a return. And we can also hop on various off-road vehicles, running zombies over with a four-wheeler, which sounds fun. All of the open world elements will be there: bases to raid for loot, safe houses for rest, towns and camps for talking NPCs. We will once again be playing the role of Kyle Crane, who after 13 years of enduring experiments has escaped, seeking retribution on his captors. In addition to tracking down main targets, the wooded region we'll explore is also full of people and factions, both friendly and foe, along with zombies and other unnamed horrors, which we'll take on with the staple melee combat system. Ranged weapons, including guns, will also play a major role, and we get a few new tools at our disposal thanks to the years of experimentation. Zombie DNA is now mixed with ours, which means, hey, we got some big powers. In fact, we got X-ray vision, we could see through walls, we can even go beast mode, letting us punch and slam our way through massive hordes of zombies, or maybe even some terrain. Time of day is going to be impactful as always. While the sun is up, you're going to be free to roam and explore in relative safely while searching for loot, but once nighttime hits, the darkness brings hordes of much more difficult.
I feel like they wanted to add a power fantasy in this game. Just, you're not like a regular human, you're like a souped up human, so you just get that power fantasy like wrecking zombies. That's a cool thing.
Foes, which can be made easier if you bring some friends along, as the game does have 4-player co-op. All right, and then finally on today's list, we have got Grand Theft Auto 6, which by all accounts is still on track for 2025. Now, back in February, during a quarterly earnings call, we saw Take-Two reiterate the fact that the game is still expected to hit its fall 2025 release. Thing is, they've just been keeping exceedingly quiet about this game, which isn't too uncommon for Rockstar. There's been very little marketing or details to speak of.
I say
we
the
just don't know much of anything about the game beyond the fact that it's gonna have all the GTA stuff that we expect carrying over from 5, right? Now, if they indeed still plan to launch this year, I expect things are going to really start ramping up in terms of marketing and previews at some point this summer. Between events like Summer Games Fest and Gamescom, I'm guessing we'll be hearing and seeing a whole lot more in the coming months. But yeah, beyond that, it's going to be Grand Theft Auto, right? It's just going to be more, better, improved, all the open world shenanigans, all the crazy level of detail. It's what we're expecting, along with, of course, the online side of the equation, which no doubt they're putting much more emphasis on this time around, given its insane popularity and the amount of money it just freely prints. All right.
This is my take about Grand Theft Auto 6. I feel like their story in the main game is finished, and now they're just working on elaborating and building the world of online, because that's their bread and butter right there. That's where they're going to make the most money from. So I believe they have the story completed. The main story is completed. That's, for the people who want to play that, but they're putting all this extra time into the online content, which they should, because I think a lot of people are going to be looking for that, since GTA 5's online content is still thriving and growing and growing. Let me know what you guys think.
So that about does it for our look at some of the best looking open world games scheduled to release in 2025. Let me know what you're looking forward to from what's on this list or otherwise. This wasn't every open world game. These are just like the top list of the things I'm most interested in playing this year. But yeah, let me know what you're keen on. Maybe put some other games on my radar down in the comments below. Would love to hear your thoughts. Hoping I'm getting better soon. I know this is like a rough presentation, but I'm coming out of it. I'm just still
get better, brother. So let me know what game you guys liked from this list. I think the only game that really caught my eye, or probably two, the Ghost game and the Terminator game look interesting too. Also, Crimson Desert looks pretty badass too. Hopefully they can make co-op cool in that game. I just, gaming with friends is always a fun time. Gaming with others is always fun. Those are the 3 games that I thought really caught my eye from this list. Let me know what games caught your guys' eye, or maybe games that weren't listed in this video. Let me know what games, or open world games or not open world games, are you looking to play this year. I'm not too sure on my next super hyped game. Monster Hunter Wilds was my first and like really hyped game coming out this year. I guess the surprise of the Elden Ring roguelike game. I'm a big fan of roguelike games, so that is a game that's going to be my next definite purchase. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what games you guys are excited for. Love you guys to pieces. Stay risen, stay rising. Until next time, I'll also give a thumbs up and subscribe if you guys like. I'll leave the original video in the description below. Show some love to Forrest. He deserves it. He makes great content. All right, guys. Love you to pieces. Stay risen, stay rising. Until next time, peace. Oh, yeah.